Now then, peoples, welcome back to Future Vapers. Today we're going to be having a look at the Vaporshark rDNA 40. So, the Vaporshark rDNA 40, it uses the DNA 40 chip by Evolve, which is their latest. They have a DNA 200 out now, which is the latest, second to latest chip. The first chip to use temperature control, bar none, was the first ever chip to use temperature control. In fact, Evolve have actually changed the way we vape twice now. They were the first people to introduce variable wattage in their DNA chip, which totally changed the way people vaped and the control they had over their vape. And then they were the first people to introduce temperature control in their DNA 40, which again totally changed the way we vape and gave us even more control over how our vape is. Unfortunately, the original DNA chip was plagued with problems and didn't perform as it should. So it wasn't overly impressive, but they have improved it since then, and unfortunately you can't update the firmware at home, so if you were an early adopter you got stuck with a janky DNA 40 which didn't perform as it should. But this is the Vaporshark rDNA version 2, which has the latest DNA 40 chip and a few other bits and bats, a few other alterations. It is also the first DNA chip to have reverse battery protection. The chips previous to this, if you put the battery in backwards, it would fry your board, but this one has reverse battery protection. This version 2, if you put the battery in backwards, I'll actually demonstrate for you. If you were to put the battery in the wrong way, it plays a high-pitched squeal, which leaves you in no doubt that you've put it in the wrong way around. It's quite easy to operate, and it still has some glitches which I'll go into a little bit further on. It's still not perfect, but most of the improvements that they've added have ironed it out, and it does perform quite well. Whether or not it performs brilliantly or as good as other chips, well, we'll get to that later. First, let's have a dive down to the table, have a little look at it, explain how it works, and then we'll pop back up. I'll give you some final thoughts, some pros, some cons, and give you my final thoughts. So let's dive down and have a closer look at this bad boy. And here we have the Vaporshark rDNA. As you can see, it's quite a small, nice and small, just right for your hand, and it looks very nice. As you see, it's quite stylish. The micro USB charger just there. Vaporshark rDNA. The screen on the bottom. On the version 2 it's a larger screen. Okay, it runs from one 18650 battery, which is there. The battery door is held on by one magnet, and it's, you know, it could be more secure for my liking. It does come off quite easy, and you know, I find myself constantly playing with it because it does, you know, come off quite easily. And you know, if you had it in your jeans and you ripped it out quickly, you know, it could easily come off. Although it wouldn't shake off, you know. Yeah, there's no way it would just shake off, but as you can see, it, you know, it does come a bit loose, although it doesn't shake off completely. But yeah, I think they could have made it a bit more secure for my liking. It's a bit loose, a bit, you know, jangly, but that's by the by. There's your fire button there. It lights up blue when you fire. When you're charging, it goes red to show it's charging, and then green around it when it's charged. This is your plus and minus buttons here. And there's the screen showing you how to well, showing you all the information you need to know. The current wattage being applied to the coil, the temperature that the coil, if you're running a nickel coil, the temperature that it will fire the coil at. When you press the fire button and it's not locked, it shows the voltage there. Focus, there we go. And the top is the resistance of the coil, and whether or not that's locked in, if it's a temperature control coil, which this one is. Okay, so to change the temperature, you press 5 times to lock it. Okay, and once it's locked, you press down plus and minus, hold it down, and you can change the temperature. Okay, you can change the temperature right up to 600 degrees Fahrenheit, and then one further switches it off. If you then went back into normal mode, you have turned off the temperature control. You've no actual reason to turn the temperature control off, however, because it does sense automatically whether you have a temperature control coil on, and if you don't, it will just fire standard. So that's quite a good feature. Oh, took it out there, so it's locked. Okay, and in Fahrenheit, it goes right down to 300 degrees centigrade. Do it again. Yep, so So 200 degrees Fahrenheit is the lowest it goes in Fahrenheit, and 230 degrees centigrade is where it will switch to. Then it goes up to 300 degrees centigrade and then switches off, and in centigrade it goes down to 65, 55, 45, 35, 25, 15, 10, 100 degrees centigrade, and then switches to Fahrenheit. And of course then you go up to 600 and then off. So set it there at 420 and that's set. Okay, you then 5 clicks to take it back to normal mode. This is a nickel build in there, a temperature control coil, 14 wraps on a dual coil build. Yeah, not the tidiest of builds, but it does the job. Come on, where's the notch? It's around there. There we go. Right. Okay, one feature that the new version does have is the ATI lock, similar to the SX Mini, where you can lock the atomizer resistance in there. Focus, please. Cameras and webcams really seem to hate me. There we go. Okay, if you hold down plus and minus, ATI locked, so it's actually already locked in there. Okay, and that is now locked that in. You can still change the wattage mode. Okay, if you had a normal Canthal build on there, holding down the plus and minus when it's not locked would lock your wattage like a standard DNA board. I'll just show you actually. Say for example I had this Triton on here, which doesn't have a temperature control coil on it. Okay, and even though the temperature control is switched on at 420 degrees Fahrenheit, when I fire it, it senses that it's not temperature control, and as you see, it switches it off. I'm firing at 35 watts, which isn't good. It's a 1.8 ohm coil I have in there, so I'll turn that down. 12.5. Focus. There we go. And holding down plus and minus, as I say, it will say ATI locked, but it's actually locked the wattage, because it's not a temperature control coil, not a nickel coil. It's locked the wattage like a standard DNA 30, and when you fire it, it will just fire normal, as a normal mod. Okay, and then when you put a temperature control coil back on, yeah, and press it, and that's it locked, and it will let you adjust the wattage, because it has just locked the resistance in there to help with the temperature control, and it will fire. No, I think that's sorry, did I mention it fires up to 40 watts, hence the DNA 40. I'll set it to 35. So, focus. There. And you see that it's firing and temperature protected. The temperature protection setting. The temperature protection is setting in. I think there's not a great deal of juice on the coil, so it's limiting the temperature of the coil so it doesn't overheat. So yeah, it's a very good feature that it automatically recognises, and you know, on a temperature control coil it will fire, and on a cancel coil it will just fire normal wattage. You don't actually have to switch it from temperature mode to standard wattage mode if you forget and put your normal coil on there. As long as the wattage isn't too high and you don't blow the coil, it will fire a cancel coil just fine. It will realise that it's not a nickel coil and act accordingly. So it's quite a clever chip in that regard, and a lot of the problems that they were having with the chip in the early days seem to have been ironed out. The battery meter does jump up and down when you switch it off and then switch it back on. Let's see if it does it now. Okay. Let me see if taking the battery out and putting it back in. You see how that's gone down quite a bit, and then as you fire it a few times, look, jumped back up. And it does that quite often. You know, it'll go down to 0 and then jump back up, but it usually only when you put the battery in at first, and then after firing it, well, once it was then, or a couple of times, 3 or 4 at the most, it will then go back up to where it is. It also has the zip charge, or the quick fast charge, which will charge your 18650 in 2 hours. I haven't actually timed it, but I have noticed it does charge rather fast. So that's about it for the close-ups and how she works. Let's jump back up to the face cam, and we'll have some pros, cons and final thoughts on her. So the Vaporshark rDNA, or the DNA 40 board, I don't know to just review the Vaporshark rDNA and like the mod they built to house the DNA 40, or include the pros and cons of the chip with the mod. Okay, well, I suppose the chip is part of the mod, so it's all included, so it all is as one. So okay, the cons of the mod: battery door, I think, could be much more secure. It's very loose. Although it won't shake off, it could easily be pulled off or knocked off, and it's very easy to slide off, very loose. I think that could have done with being a bit more secure, maybe a couple of magnets rather than the one, something like that. I'm not a massive fan either of having the display on the bottom. I'm not sure why they've done that, because there's space there between the fire button and the up and down adjustable buttons. They've even put the adjustable buttons side by side as if to accommodate the space there, and then put it on the bottom. So I'm not sure at all. The 510 is a spring loaded 510, I do believe. Yes, it is, yeah. And everything I've tried to put on here has fit on here fine. And yeah, it's okay. It's a nice mod. It's a nice mod. New coil up, same down, same coil. Yeah, but for some reason I don't get the same vape from this as I do from the SX Mini. I just seem to get a more powerful or a better vape at the same settings. So this is at 420 Fahrenheit, 35 watts. Yeah, nice vape. I'll put it on the SX Mini. The SX Mini, of course, you have to have it in temperature or power mode. It doesn't automatically sense the coil and act accordingly. You know, you really have to have it in the correct mode for the coil you're putting on there. Should have really let that cool down a bit more, but hey ho. It's okay. So 35 watts or 35 joules and 420 degrees Fahrenheit. There we go. You know, just gives more of a vape. You know, more vapor. Just for some reason I have to set the rDNA at a higher temperature and a higher wattage to get the same vape. You know, the SX Mini just seems to give a better vape for me. Even on standard wattage mode, the SX Mini seems to just give me a better vape. You know, even though Evolve were the ones to create temperature control, so to speak, or to set the trend and make the first board, they seem to have done it better. Vaporshark have actually, or they are shortly, releasing a vapor flask with the SX350J chip in it, a dual 18650 flask, which looks like it'll be interesting. But as a nice little 40 watt box mod with temperature control capabilities, it's nice. You know, it doesn't blow me away, but it does the business. Same coil. For some reason it doesn't always ask that, just sometimes. Sometimes it'll ask, same coil, press up, different coil, press down, and sometimes it won't, it'll just recognise. I'm not sure why that is, but that's why I keep forgetting to press it. But yeah, when it came out, it was like the only temperature control mod, and it worked well, and it was great. For me, temperature control it's good for drippers, so you don't get a dry hit, but I do most of my day-to-day vaping in a tank, and in a tank it's less, it matters less, I feel, and there's still a lot, it's still a grey area, is nickel wire, and whether or not it could leach into your e-juice or leach into your vapor. And there's also ifs and buts with titanium as well. So I don't use temperature control a great deal. I use it sometimes on a dripper, but the majority of my vaping I still do on standard cathode until we know for sure whether nickel is safe or titanium is safe, or they bring out a temperature control mod that uses cathode or is definitely using a safe medium. Then I'll use it, but until then I'll use it as sparingly as possible, and I tend to just use it as a 40 watt device. And for the price, it's currently, well, the first place I found it at was ukesig.co.uk, and it was £99.99. For what it is, there's better mods out there at that price. There's the Snow Wolf out there from Asmodus, which does temperature control quite well. I've not actually used one, but from what I've seen, it does temperature control quite well. It goes right up to 200 watts. Whoever needs 200 watts, I've no idea. But it goes up to 200 watts. It's a bit of a beast of a mod, so this is better and smaller in the hand. So I suppose it's what you want in a mod. You'd need to weigh it up. Do you want something nice and small? It feels nice. It has like a rubbery texture, and it really feels nice in the hand. It's small, easy to fit in the hand or your pocket, and it works. It works. You probably have to set it a little higher than you do the SX Mini to get the same results, and it doesn't give quite as good a vape, but it does the job. You don't get any dry hits. The temperature control does kick in and stop you getting dry hits, and just as a 40 watt box mod, it does the job. So I suppose it's up to you what you want from a mod, but I think there's mods on the market for the same price that do what this does better. If I just wanted a 40 watt mod, then I could get one much cheaper than that. The Coolfire 4 is about £30. That's a nice 40 watt box mod, about the same size. Probably looks even more stylish. And temperature control, there's the Snow Wolf, there's the Sigeli temperature control coming out shortly, there's the iStick temperature control coming out shortly, or there's the iStick, the SX Mini M class, which I know is a little more expensive. So I suppose it's what you want in a mod, but for an all-round mod in a small form factor, it looks good, feels good, it does temperature control fine if you get the latest version 2 with the newest DNA chip, then you could go a lot worse than this. It's a nice mod. it's a nice mod. I use it quite a bit. You know, even though I have other mods, yeah, I use it quite a bit because it's handy, it's small, you know, it's easy to just pick up and take with you. You can change the battery. If it runs out, it charges the battery very quick inside. Yeah, I do use it quite a bit. So it does what it says on the tin. So I suppose it's up to you whether you think it's worth it for what you need. Yeah, sorry I couldn't be more precise than that, but at the end of the day it's your decision. I'm just here to give you the pros and cons and my opinion, and then let you make the final decision yourself, guys. I think it's a nice mod. It does temperature control, it works. It's a nice 40-watt box mod. Yeah, you could go a lot worse. You could go a lot worse, yeah. Well, that's been the rDNA, or the Vaporshark rDNA, guys. Thanks for watching, as always. If you wouldn't mind subscribing on your way out, we've got some great reviews coming up. We're having a look at the Coolfire 4, the Sageli 150. We've got the iStick temperature control coming up shortly, and a plethora of juice reviews that I have to catch up with. I got the Element Dripper series, Milk Plus from Banzai I'll be reviewing in the next few days, and we're trying to get to 500 subscribers so I can kick off these giveaways and start giving prizes to people. So if you wouldn't mind subscribing, it would be appreciated, guys. As always, keep on vaping, guys, and please do what you can to advocate vaping. Contact your MP, go online, sign petitions. We really need everybody's help. It's coming up to May soon. You know, before we know it, it'll be upon us. The bill is in consultation as we speak, and we need to be putting our voice out there now before these are all classed as tobacco products and banned or regulated, or before they close us all down. We need to make our voices heard now, guys, so please do what you can. And yeah, like I said, keep on vaping. This has been Future Vapers. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one.